Welcome back, class. Thank you for joining me for 8.6. Today, we're going to take these notes a step further. We're still talking about factoring these trinomials. However, this time, we are actually going to have a number out front, a number with our x squared. And you're going to see how drastically that changes this problem to be slightly more complicated, however, still completely doable. Now, before we dive right in, I do want to do a little refresher with you just to make sure that we remember what's happening. So, to factor x squared plus 14x plus 24, we know we want two parentheses. Now, recall, these first two come from the x squared. So that's always been really easy because the only two things that multiply to give x squared are x and x. And then we said that these last two come from that positive 24, that last term. And before I even touch it, I know the only way to multiply to be positive is two positives or two negatives. Considering that middle term is positive, I can tell you right away that is the general structure of my answer. And from there, what did I do? Well, that's when I started diving in into what are the things that multiply to give me 24. So I would begin to break it down. And I'd create my list. Now, once I've made my list, what would I do next? Well, I would start looking to see what adds to give me 14. Which things in that list also add to give that 14. And you can probably pretty easily point out 2 and 12. So we get x plus 2 and x plus 12. So just to recap, x times x gives us that. 2 times 12 gave us that. Now, the really special thing, the thing that we really have to focus on today, is it is x times 12 combined with 2 times x. That is giving us that 14, and that is going to be critical today. Those green lines are going to be critical for our understanding today that that is where the 14 is coming from. The x times 12 being added to the 2 times x. All right? Now, again, it's always been simple so far when the x squared has been alone. But let's take a look at what happens when it's not. So, in this next example, 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. So this time, we have something a little bit more complicated. Now, I have my 2x squared, so that means that I need to break that down because there's a couple things that multiply to give me that. Now, how can we get to 2? Well, 2 we would only get with 2 times 1. So we break down that first number. If x squared has a number there, we're going to break it down, okay? Just like how we always broke down that 6 into 1 times 6, 2 times 3. So I break down both numbers now, not only that c value, but I also have to break down the number that's with the x squared. And now when I'm creating my skeleton, I need two numbers that multiply to give me 2x squared. Well, that's why we need the 2 and the 1, because that's telling me I need a 2x and a 1x there. That is how I'm going to multiply to get 2x squared. Now here we're lucky. That's the only way that we can actually do that. However, in the future it can get a little bit more complicated. But we know for a fact this is going to be our basic structure. And looking, two numbers that multiply to positive 6, either both positive or both negative, well, we see that it's a positive 7, so we know we're looking for two positives. So that really is our structure so far. But now it's not as easy as just looking for two numbers that add to 7, okay? That is going to be very deceptive. Because really what we need to look for now is that combination, those green lines that I showed you before. So once you've broken down both numbers, now I'm going to focus on this set here. Now that I have the general structure, I'm going to begin to put those in to that skeleton, that general structure. And I want to see what happens. So what I mean by that is I'm going to plug in the 1 and the 6. And I'm going to see, because remember we talked about that middle term, that 7x, is going to come from connecting those and connecting those. So 2 times 6 gives us 12, plus 1, well, that gives us 13. So that can't possibly be the combination that we're looking for. But we have to keep in mind, what if it was the reverse? What if I had my 6 here and my 1 here? This time I have 2 times 1, so giving me 2. 6, so 2 plus 6, well, that's only giving me 8. So I've completely ruled out the 1 and the 6. There's no way to make that combination give me what I'm looking for. So let's try the 2 and the 3 now. So I'm going to plug in 2 and 3, and I'm going to follow those connections. So 2 times 3, that's giving me 6. 2 times 1 is giving me 2. 2 plus 6, that's giving me 8 again. Still not the 7 that we're looking for. However, remember, I need to reverse it. So I need to try the 3 over here and the 2 over here. 2 times 2 gives me 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 4, there is the 7 that we're looking for. So this actually represents our solution. 2x plus 3 and x plus 2. All right, so obviously after only one example, this is a much more complicated process. So please bear with me. I'm going to do quite a few more of these to talk you through so you can really get a handle on what we're talking about. So looking at this next one, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to break this down. So 4 is 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. 6 is 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. So I have my breakdown completely done. Now, this time it's a little bit more complicated because as I'm looking over here, all right, that's going to give me two different general structures. So what that's telling me is I could either have 4x plus a number, x plus a number, or my structure could be 2x plus a number, 2x plus a number. So the fact that I have two possibilities is now giving me two different possible structures that I'm looking at. Okay? Because both of those will produce the 4x squared that we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one and run through every possibility of those factors of 6. Then if none of those turn out, I'll switch to the other one and begin running through all of those factors of 6. So what I mean by that is I'm going to start with 4x plus a number, 4x, oh, I'm sorry, x plus a number. I'm going to begin with that general structure, see how it goes. So I'm going to plug in the 1 and the 6. And again, we're looking for those green line connections. That is how that middle 11x is going to be created. So 4 and 6, well, that's giving us 24. 1 and x, well, that's giving us 1. That's not what we're looking for. That's giving us 25. So let's try a different combination. Let's flip the 6 and the 1. And let's see what happens now. So my connections this time when I make my green connections. I'm getting 4 and 6 this time. Well, 4 plus 6 gives me 11, or it gives me 10, not the 11 that I'm looking for. So neither the 1 nor the 6 in either place gave me what I'm looking for this time. So I'm going to move on to the 2 and the 3. All right, so I'm going to begin with the 2 and the 3. I'm going to plop those in and now test my connections again. So I'm getting 12 over here and 2 there. Well, that's going to give me 14. Still not the 11 that I'm looking for. So because that doesn't work, before we give up, let's reverse those two values. So I'm going to put the 3 over here and the 2 over there. Now I'm going to test my connections. That's going to give me 8 and 3. Well, 8 plus 3 actually does give me the 11 that I'm looking for. So what that means is that this actually is the factored form of 4x squared plus 11x plus 6. Okay, so my search is done. That is going to be the only possible solution for this. All right, let's continue on to the next page. The more exposure we get to these, the easier it'll become. So 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. I'm going to begin the same way. Well, the only way 2 breaks down is 2 and 1. The only way 5 breaks down is 1 and 5. So what the 2 and the 1 are telling me is my basic skeleton will have to be 2x and x. And then obviously plus the factors that we're searching for. So it's nice when there's only one possibility with the x squared. It makes our lives a whole lot less complicated that way. But now we have the 5 to deal with. So 1 and 5. So again, I'm going to start plopping them in, seeing what happens. So I'm going to start with the way I have it written. The 1 there, the 5 there. Then I make my connections to test it out. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 1 times x gives me 1. Well, we're actually in luck. 1 plus 10 actually gives me that 11 that I'm looking for. So actually my first guess, and I'm completely right, I've already found what I'm looking for. So this one was nice and easy. And that occasionally can happen. Your first guess actually can turn out to be the solution at times. And it's really nice when that happens. So let's go to the next one. Let's see if that one can turn out just as nicely for us. So break down that. So the only way to multiply to be 5 is with 5 and 1. Then the 4 breaks down into 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Now, the 5 and the 1 tell me that my basic structure of this one must be 5w plus a number and just w plus a number. So I can tell you with certainty already that that is going to be the basic structure that I'm looking for. That's the only way to get the 5w squared. And now I'm going to take turns plopping those numbers in. So I'm going to begin with the 1 and the 4 because that happens to be the top of my list. So I plop them in. And now I'm going to make my connections. 5 times 4 gives me 20. 1 times 1 gives me 1. And once again, we are actually very much in luck. Look at that. We've already gotten the 21 that we need. So what that's telling me is this actually is our solution right away. All right, let's look at our next one. So again, I'm always going to start by breaking this up. 6 and 1 or 2 and 3. 7 can only give us 1 and 7. So what this is telling me this time is we have 2 possible structures this time. Okay, we can have it look like this, or like that. All right, 6x and x or 2x and 3x. Those are the two ways we could possibly get that 6x squared. So I'm going to choose one to run with and see how it turns out. I'm going to begin with my 6x plus a number and my x plus a number. And now the cool thing is for this one, we actually only have to try one thing each time because we automatically know it's 1 and 7. So let's begin by plopping those in. I'm going to plop them in as is, and then I'm going to make my connections to test it out. So 6 times 7 is 42, and we get 1. Well, that's 43. That's not the 23 that we're looking for. So obviously 1 and 7 do not go in those places. But remember, we also have to try the reverse. So let's try 7 here and 1 here and see what happens. So I'm going to remake my connections. So I get 6 and 7. Well, that's only 13. All right, so what that's telling me is this can't be the basic structure of it because we just exhausted both of our options. So I'm going to completely erase this. We know that is not what we are looking for in the end. That is not our structure. We know our structure has to be this. 2x plus a number, 3x plus a number. So we know that's going to be the basic structure we're looking for this time. So let's start plopping in numbers and seeing how this goes. Let's try 1 and 7. So connect those to get 14. Connect those to get 3. That's only adding up to 17. So we're going to have to try the flip of that. We're going to have to reverse the 1 and the 7 and see how that goes. So I'm going to put the 7 here and the 1 here instead. Make my connections. I get 2 and 21. Oh, there we go. That's the 23 that we are looking for. And so what that means is we are done with that problem. We have our solution. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save that last example for us to begin with as a warm-up in class. I think you've been sitting watching this long enough, so please make sure you have these notes done and completely filled out. And just on a side note, make sure you have a pencil for class tomorrow, because as you can tell, this is a lot of erasing, reworking through, stuff like that. So make sure you bring a pencil. You're not going to want to be working in pen for the rest of these problems. That will get very messy very quickly. So once again, thank you for joining me for these notes, and I look forward to seeing you in class.